It's a new season at Madison Square Garden. There's a new starting point guard, and we got a whole new brand look. Welcome to season 3 of the Putback with Ian Begley. I am Chris Williamson alongside our SNY NBA insider, the aforementioned Ian Begley. And who better to join us for our maiden voyage than the man behind Knicks Fan TV, the Fanchise CP. And we are streaming live on SNY.TV as well as our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube channels. Get your questions posted in the comment section. We'll try to get to a couple. But Ian, let's get going, as always, with the baseline. So you wrote in your article for SNY.TV recently of what success should look like for the Knicks this season. In your eyes, what would constitute a successful season for this franchise?
Yeah, I think for me, you're looking at Jalen Brunson being added to a roster that didn't have a lot of other additions in the offseason. So if you jump to 39, 40, 41 wins and you make the play-in tournament, you're competitive in the play-in tournament, to me, that's showing progress. Now, obviously, I know a lot of Knicks fans want to see more than that. But I would say, too, that, look internally for growth. If you see one or two of these young guys make a big jump, I think that's measurable progress. But, of course, my projections, my expectations don't really matter. And quite frankly, neither do yours. No offense, guys, but it's Jim Dolan. That's who Leon Rose and his group needs to show that we're moving in the right direction. What his expectations are, I don't know, but I'm sure that he is expecting to see some progress, some jump this season from this group coming off that 37-win year last year.
Yeah, and they have to, right? You can't go, a step further back, after adding a guy like Jalen Brunson. So, CP, how do you see success for this Knicks team? Is it just making the play-in, or is it, getting one of those 1 through 6 seeds where they don't have to play in the play-in?
Yeah. Well, look, 1 through 6 would certainly be ideal, but nevertheless, I think at the very least, it should be competing for a play-in spot. When you look at the fact that they invested money in bringing in the Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle's extension kicks in this year. They just signed RJ Barrett to a contract extension. They're going to be expected to compete. I think it's realistic to say, well, maybe they're not going to be top 5 in the East, but nevertheless, you want to see them competing and not at the race to the bottom for the Wembanyama sweepstakes, even though he's a great player. So I think the pressure is going to be on Coach Tom Thibodeau and this squad to, at the very least, compete for 6, 7, 8, 9, or even 10 in the East.
Yeah, so the pressure is going to be on for Tom Thibodeau and the team, as you said, but the pressure won't be to the level of a savior when it comes to Jalen Brunson. He is a great addition to this team, but by no means is he the be-all, end-all. So with that being said, Ian, let's talk about Jalen. They signed him 4 years, $104 million contract with the Knicks this past offseason after 4 years with the Mavericks. He is the biggest storyline. In what ways are you expecting an impact from Jalen Brunson in his first year in New York? And that can be both on the court and also off the court.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see it in both areas, Chris. On the court, last year to Knicks, this team really struggled with moving the ball and finding good shots. They were bottom 5 in assist rate in the NBA. So this year, if you're looking at statistics, you should see them climb up there based on Brunson's presence alone. A lot of teammates and head coach Tom Thibodeau have raved about how the ball has moved and bodies have moved when Brunson's on the floor, particularly with that starting unit. And I know preseason doesn't really matter. I don't put too much stock into it. But you look at the assist to turnover ratio, particularly among the starters, it was very strong. So you can expect the ball to move. I think you can expect better open looks on the court when Brunson's out there. Off the court, though, his impact might be just as significant. Julius Randle said it day one. He thinks that Brunson's going to bring so much to this team in the locker room because he's going to give them a steadying presence. He's the same guy every day. His approach is the same every day. Win, lose, 5-game winning streak, 10-game losing streak. He's the same player, and he is taking on a leadership role with this group. He hasn't shied away from it. So I think the idea that the Knicks, in the past, sometimes you see the teams really struggle to deal with adversity, struggle to take a punch and get back off the deck. I think Brunson's leadership should help this group do that this year, which is going to be a benefit to everybody.
That should help them, as well as, adding another, solid shooter, right? He shot 37% from 3 last year, a couple years before, 40% from 3. So hopefully, he can get back up to that clip, I should say. But by all accounts, CP, Brunson had a great preseason with the Knicks, averaging almost 18 points a game. How impressed were you with Brunson's preseason and how he's going to fit in to the Knicks offense?
Well, Brunson has seemed to be as advertised. I mean, he seems to be the guy that had an outstanding year for the Dallas Mavericks last year, really excelled in the playoffs against the Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns. And Brunson is going to do exactly what Tom Thibodeau wants out of his point guard. Since Tibbs has been here, he wants his point guards to get into the paint and spray it out. And Brunson's dribble penetration into the paint, whether it's off of the pick and rolls or in isolation, has been pretty superb so far. His efficiency below the arc has been really good. And let's just face it, this team has been in the bottom 10 in offensive efficiency in each of the last 4 years. I would expect the addition of Brunson to help them improve offensively. We finally have an engine at the point guard position that can get these guys in order. He's taking care of the ball, as Ian mentioned, and I think that's going to have a ripple effect on R.J. Barrett's efficiency and even Julius Randle. You're seeing Julius Randle be a bit more careful with the ball. He's playing faster as well. And so, as Ian said, I think Jalen Brunson's impact on this locker room may not be as a rah-rah guy, but as a guy who's going to lead by example, whether it's on the practice court, on the practice facility, or on the court in real games. So far, this addition has been pretty beneficial for the team.
I have a Jalen Brunson hot take, I think. Maybe it's just because I've been around the last couple of weeks hearing everything. Maybe I'm drinking the Brunson Kool-Aid a little bit. But I really think, they'll be solid early on and they'll continue to grow over the course of the year. And I think Jalen Brunson and what he can do for this team is I think he'll end up cooling off Tom Thibodeau's seat. And I think he will end up having Tom Thibodeau look more like the coach he was in year one with the Knicks than he was last year. I think the fan base is going to be pleased by how things play out on the court. Again, maybe I'm a little too optimistic hearing these guys talk every day, but the impact that Brunson have, I think it's going to be immeasurable in a lot of aspects off the court.
Well, that's what Knicks fans want to see, right? They want that type of confidence, from people like yourself, Ian, where there isn't, any question about, Tom Thibodeau, that seat is getting warmer, right? So I do hope that is the case. Now, when we look at, his impact, right? He's going to impact a lot of these guys. But specifically, Ian, which teammate do you think stands to gain the most from his arrival and the way he plays, how they can play off of him?
I think R.J. Barrett. I mean, CP hit it earlier. R.J. Barrett has already talked about how he and Jalen Brunson really have a good line of communication going early on, training camp, preseason. They're talking a lot. They seem to be on the same page. And Barrett, if you've seen him over the course of his career, you don't know which areas he's going to improve in over the course of a season coming into the next one, but he's going to make a jump in some areas. And so with Brunson, I think he's going to create easier looks for R.J. Barrett. I think Barrett on his own would have probably finished better at the rim this year based on his work in the offseason and his strength. But the idea that he's sharing the floor with Brunson's going to find him for easier looks at the rim and I think more open looks behind the arc. So you're going to see Barrett's shooting percentages, I think, take a leap based in part on Brunson.
Right, because he doesn't have this. The thing, like last year, it was a lot of high usage, so his numbers maybe didn't look as good, efficiency wise. So with this season, with Brunson in there, like you said, it's going to help him improve and especially be more efficient with those open shots. Now, CP, one of the bigger storylines this offseason was the fact that R.J. Barrett signed a 4-year, $120 million extension with the Knicks this offseason after showing improvements every year. So do you like that move, the fact that they gave him that money, and are you expecting, big leaps from RJ now that he's gotten paid handsomely?
Love the move. I think it's a sign of stability for this franchise that hasn't had it. I mean, you look year over year, how much this team turns over their roster. They're looking for the big shiny thing or the new fish, and they end up mortgaging the future to go get that. But in R.J. Barrett, in their number 3 pick, again, I think it shows a sign of stability. I feel like the deal, the 4-year, up to $120 million, I thought it was a fair deal for R.J. Barrett, and I truly expect him to really take another step up in year 4. He's gone from 14 to 17 to 20 points per game in each of his last 3 years. He knows exactly what he needs to work on, and that is finishing better at the rim, playmaking, and more shooting efficiency. So far in the preseason, it's only preseason, but his shot is looking really good. He's shooting 50% from 3 in the preseason so far. Some of those off of Jalen Brunson's drives, as Ian had mentioned. And I think RJ, he's putting in the work to be that guy. He wants to be a leader for this team, and I feel like it's a good sign for the organization to move forward with him in that regard.
CP, just want to jump in here for a second because your background is stellar, man. I just want to let everybody know where you are. 4040 Club in Manhattan, live on location. You'll be there all day with your show, right? You're going to check in with us throughout the day?
Live on location from the 4040 Club here in New York City. We have a ton of people, ton of rabid Knicks fans coming into town to watch this game with us, and it's going to be an electric atmosphere. So we're setting up now. We're setting up early and definitely looking forward to it. So we invite everybody in the tri-state area to come down and join us.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm here at the FedEx Forum in Memphis. I'm in one of their media rooms. Very nice of the team to provide me with this. The light is blazing on me. It looks like I might be going to the pearly gates, but I really appreciate the hospitality.
We need you here, though. We need you here. Don't go to the pearly gates yet.
We need you for pregame, man. Don't go anywhere yet.
But just jumping on CP, we was talking about RJ Barrett and stability. I think you could throw Mitchell Robinson into that category as well, because the deal that he signed and the idea that he is a player drafted by New York like RJ Barrett and brought along in this system. And here he is on his second contract, 4-year, $60 million deal. And the Knicks have really liked what they've seen from Robinson thus far. You know, he was healthy this past offseason. He was able to put on more strength, but also just work on basketball, which he wasn't able to do the prior offseason. Tom Thibodeau all preseason has been talking about Mitchell Robinson as the best offensive rebounder in the NBA. So we were talking to Steven Adams here at Grizzlies Shootaround, and I asked him kind of what he thought of that assessment. He had a praise for Robinson. He said, yeah, that's probably true. I would say so, because Robinson, you know, his timing is great, and he really approaches offensive rebounding really well, and he's been impressed by Robinson's growth year over year. So you hear it from your peers around the league, and I think that says something when a guy like Steven Adams starts to talk about Mitchell Robinson's offensive rebounding prowess.
Yeah, I got to say I like where Mitch is at as well this year, man. He seems to have come into camp in the preseason in good shape, both physically, mentally. He talked about not taking this opportunity for granted, because guys of his size don't really last that long in the NBA. And you see a lot of these guys with these nagging lower extremity injuries. And so Mitch is no different. Durability is surely going to be the most important factor for him. But as long as he is on the court, I'm looking for him to continue to be that security blanket for the Knicks, both on the defensive end and offensive end. Defensively, being a guy that can man the paint, that can protect the rim as Tom Thibodeau wants. You've seen him be a bit more confident in terms of deterring shots and really being an intimidator out there on the defensive end. And then offensively, his bread and butter is on the offensive boards. Continue to clean up those missed shots, get us second chance points. Those are very important, especially for this team that has struggled to score. And so Mitchell Robinson, his big test starts tonight against Steven Adams, who arguably is the best offensive rebounder in the league and led this Memphis Grizzlies team to being the best offensive rebounding team last year. The battle of the boards between those guys is going to be a key factor in who wins tonight.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up, CP. Like, how that matchup goes tonight, you know, is going to be crucial to seeing if the Knicks are able to win, getting those second and third chance opportunities. And if Mitchell is anything like he was some of those preseason games where he was just a menace going up for boards, the Knicks should be feeling confident. Now, you're watching the season 3 premiere of the Putback. I'm Chris Williamson alongside Ian Begley, as well as CP The Fanchise, Knicks Fan TV. And time for me to give a little love, give some roses to one player standing out to me, and that is Derrick Rose, right? So last year, he averaged 12 points, 4 assists, wasn't able to play a whole lot because of injuries, but we know the caliber that he has when he is healthy, and we're hoping that he's able to stay healthy for this entire season, unlike last season. So, Ian, if CP, what is your confidence level in the Knicks second unit, and who is the X factor when you look at guys like Derrick Rose and others? I know Derrick's not going to play tonight, but you know he is going to be important for this team going forward.
Yeah, well, when you look at Derrick Rose and the impact that he's had since being acquired by this team at the trade deadline 2 years ago, he was surely missed last year, and I think that was a big reason why they took a step back. And even though he may not play as much this year, rightfully so, he should be on some minutes management, some load management. I still think he's going to give the second unit a pop as a shot creator, as a playmaker, as a former MVP who has that veteran savvy to him, who's going up against second unit players, lifting guys up like Emmanuel quickly so that he can kind of slow things down and play within his game. Get some playmaking out there with Obi Toppin. I think Derrick Rose is going to elevate this team tremendously. both on and off the court. He's looking to be more of an assertive leader in that locker room as well. As I said, you add in an Emmanuel quickly going into his third year rather, and coming off of a good second season rather, as a playmaker and as a scorer. I think quickly is certainly going to help us on the perimeter. Now, what happens at the three? You have Quentin Grimes, who's going to be recovering from injury. When does he come back? And then Cam Reddish, who's on really a road to redemption to really restore his career. And so what happens at the three offensively is going to be interesting. Obviously, with Obi Toppin, he's going to be our spark plug. He's going to be the energy guy for this team getting out in transition. Hopefully, his three-point shot continues where it left off last year. And then the Isaiah Hartenstein pickup was a nice change of pace from Mitchell Robinson and Jericho Sims. Hartenstein will provide some passing from the perimeter. You want to see his rim protection be a little bit better and rebounding as well. And so I think they could be a little bit more vulnerable in the front court than they have in previous years. But nevertheless, on the perimeter, in the back court, is going to be the strength of this second unit.
So, you make a lot of great points, CP, and I want to know your thoughts about this. So at the three position, you mentioned, that is a little bit dilemma. Who do you feel like Quinn Grimes, he's not in a position to play right now because of his injury status, but who do you have the most confidence in to fill that slot with that second unit to give them a boost of energy if the starters are, a little sluggish or they just need a spark?
Well, if he's healthy, I have to lean on Quentin Grimes because he provides you with efficiency from three as well as some defensive tenacity, which Tom Thibodeau loves. Tom Thibodeau has been raving about this kid, and he hasn't even stepped on the court that much in the preseason. And so I think it's Grimes. Cam Reddish, who the Knicks acquired last year for a conditional first-round pick, he's on an uphill climb, but he has opportunity right now with Quentin Grimes being out with injury to really assert himself. He's in a contract year. He's playing for his life. And Cam Reddish has to take this bull by the horn starting tonight in Memphis and really show that he has some staying power with this team, or maybe even show to the league that he has some staying power in the league. The preseason didn't really go so well for him. He had some lackluster performances, some lackluster starts. You really want to see him take the bull by the horns and seize this opportunity. But nevertheless, my confidence right now is in a healthy Quentin Grimes.
Okay, and the other player that so many people talk about, CP, is Mr. Obi Toppin, right? You touched on him a little bit about hoping he improves on that 3-point shot. But realistically, what type of jump are you expecting him to make if, and keyword if, Tibbs is allowing him to really cook and flourish and make mistakes? Because this is a very heavy young team, and you want to see your young guys develop each year and year after that.
Yeah. His jump depends on minutes, Chris, and Obi Toppin right now cannot get less than 20 minutes per night for this team. They need his energy. They need his efficiency out there. The way that he's able to get this team easy baskets so that they're not struggling all the time in the half court. Obi Toppin is that change of pace that this second unit needs and that this team needs to really feel good about themselves, seize momentum, the high flying plays, those things count for something. And so I think his jump is really going to be predicated on the minutes that he gets because he's shown that with extra minutes, with extra time, he can be confident about himself. He doesn't have to look over his shoulder. He doesn't have to look towards the bench at Tom Thibodeau, who's ready to bring in Julius Randle. But it all depends on Tom Thibodeau and whether or not he's going to throttle down Julius Randle's minutes a little bit and allocate them to Obi Toppin, or he's going to play these guys together at pivotal moments in these games. And we just really haven't seen that yet.
Right, we haven't, but this is a new year. It's a holiday, I know, for you. So maybe there are good gifts that Tibbs is going to bring to us, right? But let's address the elephant in the room, CP. Donovan Mitchell, of course, is not a New York Knick. And the Knicks felt that they would be giving up too much to Utah in that deal. So how much pressure, and we kind of, alluded to a little bit earlier in the show, but how much pressure does that put on the young players to live up and to exceed expectations? Because what they're saying is, look, we think you guys are good enough, to compete right now as opposed to trading you to Utah. So how much pressure do you feel like is on them as it stands right now?
Yeah, I think there will be some pressure on the young players to perform because, as you said, the organizational signal to them, at least by the words of Leon Rose, is that we have confidence in you and we want to continue to build this core with you guys in mind. So that means an RJ Barrett, a Quentin Grimes, an Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickly. Those guys are going to be expected to step up and take a leap for this organization. The thing about young cores in this league is that you want to see, okay, are they able to help this team win games and compete, or are they good enough to help you land the next stepping stone in your organization? And right now, it just does not seem that the Knicks are there just yet. And so this is going to be another year, another pivotal year for the Knicks to evaluate what they have in their young players, see who's ready to take that next step, see who's going to stay on with this team, or who can go out there and get you another player that can help you reach the next level in your progression.
Right. So that is for the young players, and it's going to be pivotal for this team. Okay. But Julius Randle, and I guess you can put he is a veteran, even though he's still young compared to other guys. Not the greatest season last year. Ian, and you wrote in your bold predictions column that Julius Randle's assist to turnover ratio will improve and his minutes per game will decrease. And I think that last point is huge. We know how Tom likes to run these guys sometimes maybe a little bit too much. Explain your reasoning on that, because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, the assisted turnovers, I think the ball's just going to be in Julius Randle's hands less often and in less volatile situations. Jalen Brunson is going to control the ball for the most part, and he's going to find Julius Randle in comfortable situations. So Randle he's not going to have the opportunity to operate, I think, with facing the basket, coming off the dribble as much. So I think the turnovers go down. And I think the way you saw this offense play early in the preseason, the ball is going to move. But if it stops, I mean, you're going to start pointing fingers as to who's doing what and why is the ball stopping. But I think by and large, this thing should keep moving with Brunson running the show. And then you look at his minutes, right? I don't think there's going to be a big decrease in Julius Randle's minutes, but in order to get Obi Toppin more time, you have to take away some of Randle's minutes because Tom Thibodeau has made it clear that he's not going to play both of those guys at the same time in the same lineup. He doesn't like that look. So that's why I think Randle's minutes are going to decrease slightly. So you give Obi Toppin a chance to get more towards 18, 19, 20 minutes per game. So that's where things are with Randle. Big season for him, but I do think that he's in really good shape. I think he's in good shape mentally, physically coming into this year.
Yeah, he will. Go ahead.
And that's why, Ian, that's why I say when Chris was asking the question earlier, which player will Jalen Brunson help the most? I think I do agree that he will help RJ, but I think he's going to help Julius as well because he's going to help take that pressure off of Julius in terms of having to play make, having to set guys up, having to operate out of double and triple teams and get your other guys in a rhythm. With Brunson here, Julius can kind of be that secondary, that tertiary guy, score, get some scoring in rhythm. Yes, play make to a certain extent, but it's going to be on Brunson to really be that engine. And so I think that will help Julius maybe even just feel better about himself on both ends of the floor. And so hopefully with that, his energy will pick up, his intensity will pick up, and that will elevate the team as well.
Right. We are not looking forward to seeing, or hopefully, we don't have to see, a repeat of last year when, he only shot for 41% from the field, 30% from three, which is a dramatic step back from 24.1 and 45% the year before. Right. But we do have some comments coming in. Yeah. Ralphie Rock is asking a question. They want to know if they could trade Randle or Fournier for a strong shooter. Ian, what do you think about that? Just how maybe it works out money-wise and all that.
Well, with Evan Fournier, he's got 2 years essentially left on his deal. Julius Randle, more than that. So it's not as if any team would be looking at either of those two guys as a player that they can, just salary dump. So I think that's part of the equation when you talk about those deals. Sharpshooters out there. Eric Gordon's out there with Houston. I'm sure the Knicks, have considered him or taken a look at him. There's going to be other shooters that are available. But with regards to having Randle and Fournier as the pieces you are sending out, it becomes tricky because of the length of their deals.
Hey, Evan Fournier is a shooter, isn't he?
Right.
Went for 3 on 7 attempts.
Did Rafi not watch Evan last year? I mean, Evan knocked down shots.
Well, maybe they did. Yeah, maybe they didn't watch the Celtics games, right? Because he went off against the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Fournier is a guy that can still help this team. He hasn't closed a lot of games last year. Ideally, that'll go to a Grimes. Maybe it goes to a Quickly, depending on matchups. Maybe it even goes to a Derrick Rose. Who knows? But I still think Evan Fournier can help this team with this shooting. A team whose effective field goal percentage has been in the bottom of the league for a number of years. I don't see how you can ever do with enough shooting. I think Fournier can help in selective spots.
Definitely.
One thing about trades in general, sorry, Chris, is you look at this roster. I think other teams are looking at this roster, and there's a surplus, right? Even with Quinn Grimes hurt, you still don't know, is Tom Thibodeau going to go Miles McBride in place of Grimes? Is he going to go Cam Reddish in place of Grimes? So even with an injury, there's still question marks about the rotation. That's why I think there's going to be teams calling about these young players with the Knicks, and I think the Knicks are going to have these conversations because we know that they're not done in a big picture sense with regards to trying to get a star in here via trade, but also just improving the roster more incrementally. I think they're open to that. And also another big picture reason that I think they're going to at least take a look at trades is because you look ahead and Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickly, they'll both be extension eligible coming up next year. And it's going to be hard for the Knicks, I think, to pay both of those guys because they've already committed money to Mitchell Robinson, and Derrick Rose is on a long-term deal, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson. So you do the math, and it seems like you could pay Toppin or Quickly, but it would be tough to pay both. I think other teams recognize that, and they're keeping an eye on that scenario too.
Yeah, so those players are, possible trade trips. Derrick Rose, probably not likely, especially at this stage of his career. Who knows, maybe. But Ian, if he stays healthy, how crucial is his role for the next season? Because we saw what he was able to do a couple of years ago when they made that surprise run as the 4 seed to the playoffs.
I don't think you could overstate the importance of Derrick Rose, a healthy Derrick Rose. Last year he was hurt and the wheels fell off. The year before, as you said, Chris, he really got them going and helped them push to that playoff spot. So night and day with a healthy Derrick Rose on this team. He had that ankle surgery last year, and he said the other day that he feels really good. He feels like he can get to his spots. He feels light because that ankle had been bothering him for the past couple of years. So it's cleaned out. He's ready to go from that standpoint. He said, if you need me to play more minutes, I'm ready to do that. He makes such a difference for players in that second unit like Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickly and anyone else you want to throw out there because of what he can do on the court, but also the way that he relates to these younger players. And you can do that when you're hurt. You can do that from the bench, but it's so different when you're on the floor playing with guys. So I think, the impact that he can have, really, it's hard to overstate the importance of Rose. That second unit, something Thibodeau is going to rely on all year, particularly early on this year. So, having Rose healthy is big.
And to your point, he's going to, really, or hopefully he's already done it, imparting his wisdom as the season goes on onto these young players. And speaking about the young guys, Ian, who is one young player on this Knicks squad that you're really looking out for in the early parts of this season?
I want to see Cam Reddish. He did not do anything in the preseason, in my opinion, that made you say, wow, Tom Thibodeau has to play Cam Reddish this season. He's got to put him in the rotation. I want to see with this injury with Quinn Grimes, does Reddish get used? Does he take advantage of that opportunity? Does he do a little more than you saw him in the preseason? And does he do anything where you say to yourself, he's got to be in the rotation? We didn't see it yet in the preseason. He should get opportunities here with Grimes hurt early on in the year. So I'm looking at Cam Reddish, who can be a restricted free agent this coming off season, and see what he does with any opportunity he gets early on this year.
There's no better opportunity than now for Cam Reddish, with Quentin Grimes out, and we're not so sure how long. Starting tonight, Cam Reddish has an opportunity to change the perception of him that was a lackluster preseason. He can have that spot off the bench. We need defense. We need wing defense in particular. And can he find some efficiency with that second unit is left to be seen. But in a contract year with Quentin Grimes out in the a deep 2-guard rotation, Cam Reddish has an opportunity right now to really assert himself. So let's see what happens.
And you have to seize the opportunity, right? The moment. The moments like these do not come, that often, right? So when somebody's injured, you don't want to see that. You have to capitalize in order to stay in this league and be in the rotation. But another guy, you know, we mentioned before in passing is Tom Thibodeau, right? How much, CP, does the success or failure of this Knicks team fall on the shoulders of him?
Well, I'm always thinking that this is a talent league. And so to me, the success or failures of this team is going to rely on just how good they are, right? Brunson was a good upgrade. I think RJ's taking another step. We'll see how Julius Randle fares. We'll see what the bench impact with Rose and Quickly in that backcourt. Does a young guy like it, Quentin Grimes or Cam Reddish, step up as well? I think it's going to rely on the players. Now, if for some reason this thing falls off a cliff early in the season and they're not performing up to expectations, then you may have to consider, okay, has he lost that locker room? So far, you know, being around the team here and there from the summer on down, they're a united front. They are rallying behind Tom Thibodeau. I think they have a lot of respect for him. And so I think they're going to continue to play hard for him and buy in to what he's preaching. But if it looks to be the other way early in the season, then I think, yes, there will be a lot of pressure on his job.
Yeah, and I actually think, you know, they're going to get off to, you know, a hot start, and they're not going to, you know, walk slowly into their way into the season. So with that being said, you know, it's time for final thoughts. And I believe, you know, Knicks are going to finish with 41 wins, right? I think that is something that is attainable with this current roster. Who knows what additions they make, you know, during the trade deadline. But I think 41 wins is something that they will be able to achieve. How about you, CP? What number are you going with for how many?
I'm right there. I'm around 42, Chris, and I think that's good enough for maybe it's playing territory. Is it 7, 8, 9, 10? We'll have to see. But I think that's about where they will fall within the East. I'm going 42 wins, a 5-game improvement from last year.
Yeah, I go 39. I'm right around where you guys are, playing tournament. I also think that the Knicks, if things are sideways approaching that trade deadline, you know, Leon Rose, since he's been team president, hasn't been super aggressive at the deadline. But if they're underperforming approaching that deadline, I could see them being really aggressive and trying to upgrade this roster, trying to turn things around at that point.
Right. So here's the conclusion. All of us know or think that the Knicks will take a step in the right direction, which is good. How big of a step, you know, only time will tell. But that will do it for this edition of the Putback with Ian Begley. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, Thursday, November 3rd, for another episode. After tonight's game, be sure to watch Geico Sports Night at 11 for complete reaction and analysis, and check out SNY.TV for the full recap. Our thanks to CP The Fanchise, as always, bringing us wonderful insight and commentary. Give him a follow at Knicks Fan TV. But for Ian Begley, I'm Chris Williamson. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the opener.